Hello, my name is Mark Ablett. I'm the Principal Moderator for Site Carpentry and Joinery Technical Qualifications and the 7906 series. The object of this PowerPoint is to go through the documentations and some tips and guides on how to complete and upload the evidence for the candidate's assessment. The 4 routes available within the technical certificates are down 2 separate routes: the Site Carpentry and Architectural Joinery, both available at level 2 and at level 3. Each one of the qualifications has a single multiple choice exam, and at level 3 there is some short answers. Each one also has a single synoptic assignment, but if all evidence cannot be met, they will also have a knowledge assignment to ensure that during the full qualification all range will have been assessed. So the slides we'll be looking at today will be an overview of a previous level 2 Site Carpentry synoptic assessment, an example of a candidate's to list and a method statement, a look at the quality of the photographic evidence that is required, how to use the marking grid, an example of a completed practical observation sheet, and an example of a candidate record form. Each synoptic assignment is based around a scenario. In this scenario, a client has purchased a pair of semi-detached properties and has had the party wall removed, leaving an open plan upper floor with 2 staircases. One staircase has been removed and going to facilitate the installation of a disabled lift. The second staircase is to remain but requires refurbishment. The required refurbishment is an open well staircase with 13 risers with an individual step of 190 and a going of 230. The client has asked for some advice on how to improve the appearance of the existing balustrade and the materials there would be required to purchase. The candidate is therefore required to research options and make a recommendation in the form of an annotated sketch for replacing the balustrade with the materials required. They must also ensure that their recommendation is compliant with the relevant building regulations. In addition, the client has also requested that they receive a detailed scale drawing showing the layout and position of all the components required to reconfigure the open stairwell, the one that is to accommodate the disabled lift access. They are then required to fit all the structural flooring components to meet the specifications. And the flooring specifications are given, so the joist is 400mm centres, with a trimmed opening 800mm by 1250. The joist they're going to use a 150 by 50mm nominal size, however CLS can be used. Tradition herringbone strutting is to be included, and the use of proprietary joist hangers. Once the candidate has completed the task, they are required to complete a self-evaluation documentation of what went well, what didn't go well, or what they would do in the future, and that is task 4. This slide shows a floor layout of the semi-detached property which has had the party wall removed. On the right hand side it shows the existing staircase which requires a new balustrade, which is the knowledge assignment, and the practical part of the assessment is the open well staircase which is requiring infilling with joists trimmed out to accommodate the disabled lift to the dimensions and location as given in the drawing. The candidate will receive the tasks. In this scenario, task 1A is where the candidate must research the options and prepare an annotated sketch with their recommendations for replacing the balustrade. And the second part, that task 1B, is to complete a comprehensive material list of all the components required. The conditions to all your assessments is that they must be completed on their own and under supervised conditions. Once completed, the candidate must submit to you as a marker their work for marking and for you to submit for moderation. Task 2 is again the two parts. 2A is produce a detailed scale drawing showing the layout and position of all components. And the second part is to complete a to-list equipment materials for the stairwell reconfiguration. The candidate will use their scale drawing as a working drawing while completing tasks 3. None of these two tasks are part of the practical observation form, however they will be taken into account on the holistic marking when using the CRF form. Task 3 is the practical aspect of the synoptic assignment. The candidate will be expected to use their own working drawings to set out, mark, cut and fix all floor joists and strutting. As the marker, you will observe the practical assessment taking place and make comments on the candidate's performance throughout the whole task. At the end of the assignment, you'll be expected to take the photographs listed within the centre guidance documents. And on this assignment, they're basically a photograph of the trimming joists, the strutting detail and the completed joist layout. Once the candidate has completed task 3, within a day, 2 days, they then need to complete task 4, which is a self-evaluation form. Again, this can be found in the Centre Documentation Library. The candidate is expected to look at what went well, what didn't go so well, and what they would possibly do different in the future. This is an important document which must be completed and uploaded. Here we can see an example of a candidate's material list for the assignment task 1, showing soffit balustrade, etc, etc. This is not a definitive list and each candidate should come up with their own list. This is showing you as the marker the candidate has the knowledge and the understanding of what is required and can calculate the materials required. All of the pro formas are available in the Centre Document Library and it's recommended they're used for ease for yourself as a marker and as a moderator to view. And here we can see some sketches. The candidate has put a sketch together of how the staircase is going to go. You can see it's just a hand-drawn sketch, but some important detail is in there. For example, we've got the formula 2R plus G, and also he said 100mm sphere is shown on the sketch. This could be laid out slightly better with a little bit more detail relating it back to the building regulations. And the second sketch should really be a scale drawing as per the recommendations, but the candidate has shown an understanding of what is going to go where and how he's going to infill the opening. When taking the photographs, it's important that the photographs taken matches what's set out in the centre guidance documents. All photographs should be correctly labelled, showing the candidate's details and submitted in a correct candidate's folder. All photos should be taken at a resolution that enables the moderator to be able to zoom in and inspect the evidence. You've got to remember the moderator won't be there to mark. Only submit the photograph evidence required. However, additional photographs can be uploaded only if they give justification to your marker's comments. So additional photos can be used, but only if they bring in something to the table. This slide shows 8 images that have been taken and uploaded to verify the candidate's evidence. The first one shows the joist hanger between the trimmer and trimming joist, all fixing points used, relatively tight joints from what you can see at the bottom, and the face looks relatively flush at the top. The second image is showing the joist layout, which then should match the previous slide scale drawing. The third image is a plan showing how tight the gap is between the trimmer and trimming joist. The fourth image is showing the candidate with his completed task, and for the sake of the slide, his face and name and details have been obscured. The fifth image is showing the opposite side of the trimming joist, showing again a tight flush finish at the top, vertical cut, nice and neat, relatively tight, and all fixing points used. And from here we can see that all the other joists, the bridging joists, are completed, all fixing points and faces flush. The following two slides, taken from both directions, is showing the cuts on the strutting, the fixings and the location. The final slide is showing the completed task in its entirety with a label giving the candidate's name and details. The following 6 slides is how to use the marking grid. Each assessment is broken down to assessment outcomes. Assessment outcome 1 is the recall of knowledge, and each one of these is then broken down into 3 band descriptors. So for this task here, it is worth 10% of the overall mark. It gives you a breakdown of what recall of knowledge is, and under each band descriptors there's a guidance on how to complete it. So 1 to 2 marks on the knowledge is there shows some weakness in the breadth and or some inaccuracies, so they're hesitant, bit inaccurate in times, and there's gaps in their knowledge. For band 2, the candidate should be recalling most things accurately. They're showing a reasonable breadth, some slight misunderstandings, but these are usually only minor. And the top band is a strong to excellent candidate, consistently accurate, confident, everything is fluent and complete. Some examples of the type of knowledge expected would be how to use the tools, equipment accurately, the use of PPE, safety aids, how to fit ironmongery, etc. And the very bottom box where it says the candidate has demonstrated recall of knowledge and is being limited. So an example again for band 2, demonstrated recall of knowledge, it's mostly accurate, and the candidate has shown in-depth knowledge, so some examples of a band 3 candidate. AO2 is understanding, and this carries 15% of their overall marks. Again, there's a clear list there on the left hand side of what it means by understanding, and again this is broken down into 3 band descriptors: poor, fair and strong. Quite explanatory. I'm not going to read through it all, but it is there for you as a marker to use and help you come up with your evidence for marking. AO3 is the application, which carries 35%, is where most of the marks come from, and this is basically the practical assessment. So again, this is split into 3 columns, band descriptors. So band 1, for example, the candidate will be unable to adapt, frustrated, there's some flaws, he's out of tolerance, there'll be some imperfection, and the candidate's work has been quite clumsy. The middle of the road candidate, fair to good, somewhat successful, there'll be some inconsistencies, and they're quite capable, but it's not perfect by any imagination. The higher level candidate, will be working to a level that shows the dexterous. It seems to come naturally, it's skilled, been well practiced, and tolerances have been met. Still on AO3, there's some examples there of how the candidates could have get the marks. So it says at the bottom there to access higher marks. This is used to get marks within the band. So not all tasks completed but attempted. So poor standard of work and with mistakes requiring extra resources. So this is looking at the top and bottom of band 1. So if a candidate was somewhere in band 2, we can take what we looked at earlier, so the work will be completed, some minor mistakes with some poor quality finishment, measurements are mostly accurate and some tolerances met. So that would be a candidate at the bottom end of band 2. To access the higher marks, the work will be completed to an acceptable standard with minimal mistakes, some good housekeeping and additional resources not required. So that can help you as a marker decide where they are within the bands. So for example, you think a candidate is quite strong. You will look at the work and say, was it complete to a high standard with some minor mistakes? Measurements are consistently accurate. Most tolerances are met with good housekeeping and the work methodically. So with that band descriptor, that knowledge and that evidence, we're saying that candidate is in band 3. But whereabout in band 3 are they? So if the task was completed consistently to a very high standard with no mistakes, measurements are accurate with all tolerances met, excellent housekeeping, that candidate then will be somewhere towards the top of that band. This evidence I would use across all the band descriptors, across all the assessment outcomes. So look to see where the candidates are. Are they band 1, band 2 and band 3? And where are they within that banding? AO4 carries 20% of the marks, and this is bringing it all together. So as per all other assessment objectives, they're broken into the 3 bands. And again, what you've got there is some guidance notes on what the candidate should be doing and what you should be looking for when making your decision upon the marking and the marks awarded. This slide is a continuation of AO4. Again, quite clear on what we're looking for and how well the candidate has performed. As the candidate is demonstrating some planning, application of some knowledge, band 1. The candidate's plan, prepared and complete most tasks in line with the specifications, band 2. The task plan, prepared and complete the specification with minimal errors, band 3. And again, using the how to access higher marks will help you as a marker decide where that candidate is within each one of them band descriptors. I must stress these shouldn't be copied and pasted, but it's there to give you guidance on how to complete and fill in the practical record form. The final one is AO5, which carries 20%. It's the attention to detail. How well that candidate is working to perfect it, how conscientious they are, and double checking to ensure the quality of the overall task. Again, broke into 3 separate band descriptors with clear guidance on what you should be looking for when marking. So band 1, limited attention to detail, some inaccuracies, work is not complete and is of a poor standard. So to access the higher marks, the tasks have been completed but only up to a poor standard. Band 2, some attention to detail, tasks are generally accurate and to an adequate standard. There's good attention to detail and task complete with only minor imperfections would be a candidate who's the top end of band 2. So bottom end of band 3, the candidate has got some excellent attention to detail, been focused and complete the task to a high standard. And at the top end of band 3, they've been focused, meticulous, care and attention, double checking the work, measure twice, cut once, etc. and has completed the task to an excellent standard. So I hope that helps you looking at how the band descriptors work, and how we'll look at how to use these when completing the practical observation form. The practical observation, or PO form as it's called, is used for the marker to record what the candidate produced during the practical assessment. Task 1A, 1B is not recorded, neither is 2A and 2B or task 4. It's purely for the marker to record what they are seeing and during the practical observation only. The PO form has guidance down the left hand column, which is titled AO1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So what we're looking at for is what recall, what understanding the practical skills are being displayed. So on this first slide here, AO1, the marker has bullet pointed that it was a very confident performance. It was set up before starting the task. He showed full understanding and use of the tools required, linking it directly across whenever possible to the bullet points on the left hand column. On AO2 example, the marker said the candidate worked to a strong plan, keeping to a set sequence of work, result of work from the drawing specifications, and transfer that information to the practical task. On AO3, it said inspected all tools prior to use, correctly set up the tools with confidence and good ability. This will continue on the next slide. This slide is a continuation of the previous slide. The marker has said that the candidate has met 7 out of the 8 tolerances listed. If a candidate doesn't meet all the tolerances, this does not mean the candidate has failed. The tolerances are there purely to give you as a marker some guidance, some support of what we should be looking for. If a candidate exceeded the tolerances, please state that the candidate has marked out within 1 millimetre rather than the 2. If the candidate is slightly out, explain and give what it was. The bottom one, for example, the candidate didn't meet the strutting within 5 millimetres plus 3. From the photograph earlier, it appeared the candidate was 12 millimetres out. All the marker needs to do was saying, candidate fitted strutting, tolerance is not met, however, strutting was adequate, sufficiently fixed, all faces tight, and gaps at top and bottom were equal. This doesn't mean to say the candidate has failed. The marker has then gone on and said the candidate had a full understanding of the task, he showed confidence and care in completing the task, and there was strong planning and methods shown. When it comes to attention to detail, the marker said the candidate showed excellent marking and measuring out, the fixing of hangers was done well, bending hangers over with a piece of timber rather, and again this will continue on with the slide. The important thing to note here is that the candidate's work has been marked again by the marker against the relevant AO. Again, this is a continuation of the PO form. The marker states that the candidate failed to meet the criteria on the strutting. It's important to say that the candidate hasn't failed the assessment, the candidate just didn't meet the criteria laid down in the column. Good practice to just state why, when, how, if, etc. So the candidate did not quite meet the criteria, but the candidate did fit the strutting 12 millimetres from top and bottom, faces flush, etc. It's not a fail. It's always good practice to give a detailed explanation of what there was. The last part of the PO form is health and safety and housekeeping. As we can see here, the marker has given quite a detailed explanation of what the candidate did, how he did it, linking it back to the AO1s, 2s and 3s. The last page of the PO form is looking how it was brought it all together and the timings. The markers give quite a detailed explanation saying safe working was demonstrated during the task and there was strong evidence of planning from the information given. The candidate had allocated time for each activity and all tasks were completed. It would be good practice to actually give some examples of how safe working practices was demonstrated, and also I'll keep a log of the time each session so you could record and include into the task the time given. So again, I'm not saying this is a perfect example, I'm just showing you how it can be expanded on and further developed. The candidate record form, or CRF, must be completed for each candidate. The evidence for the CRF will be gained from the practical assessment documentation and also from the task 1A and 1B and task 2, the setting out the drawings and the material lists. So this is a holistic approach to all evidence gathered. So this marker has judged this candidate as a 5, which is the bottom of band 3, and the evidence for that is listed as bullet points, so the candidates prepared well for the task, was confident in their performance, good knowledge of use of hand and power tools, check them all before use, etc, etc. So the marker has given a list of the reasons why this candidate was marked 5. The candidate again was given bottom band 3 descriptor as a mark 7, and the rationale for that being the candidate pre-planned a strong method and sequence of work, kept a method and a sequence of work throughout, a good use of drawings and specification, and being able to transfer the information to the practical task. So the candidate has been able to understand the brief, produce working drawings that he could follow, and again that what we're saying now is this is a holistic marking, so the marker has taken the evidence from practical task 3, linking it to task 2. On practical task AO3, this candidate was given 18 by the marker, which is midway in the band 3 descriptors, and the justification notes show that the candidate confidently used and adjusted these power tools, checked all tools before use, good ability of using power and hand tools, measuring the tolerances 7 out of the 8, evidence of working to accuracy, and the candidate worked in a safe and confident manner. The marker allocated 9 marks to bring it all together, which again is the bottom end of band descriptor 3. 4 rationales given. Technical drawing sketches of a reasonable standard. Is the candidate overly marked on this point? We'll look at that in a minute. For AO5, the marker allocated 8, which puts the candidate in the top end of the middle band. And the rationale for that was he failed to meet the criterion of strutting because he mismeasured, so some lack of attention to detail and double checking there. And his technical drawing sketches needed more care in the drawing, / more details on drawing. So if we think back, there was only a sketch produced when a technical drawing, a scale drawing was requested. The drawing lacked detail of no dimensions, centres, etc. So the marker has taken this into account, but possibly slightly overmarked on these 2 points here. A quick summary. It's important that all evidence is uploaded. double check that anything that may be double-sided has been scanned fully. It has been in the past where double-sided evidence has been missed. We'd only have to come back, ask you for the evidence. It's much easier if everything is double-checked and uploaded at one. All the evidence that has been uploaded is clearly labelled, i.e. Task 1A, 1B, evidence for the knowledge assessment. The photographic evidence is clearly labelled. The candidate reflection document is labelled. All images are clear and meet the criteria set out in the Centred Document Handbook. And as mentioned earlier, additional evidence can be uploaded as long as it helps to give rationales to your assessment decision. Images are not copied and pasted in a Word document. It's important that they can be expanded and viewed by the moderator. And only one candidate's work to be contained in each folder. It's good practice to scan every learner's evidence, upload that before one does another one. And finally, I'd like to say thank you, and I hope this presentation has helped you, give you some advice and guidance on how to collate and upload and mark your candidate's work. Thank you.